episode. I am your co-host, Coach Mack, the founding health coach of Running with Bacon, where I help women become their fittest and strongest selves one small step at a time. And I am joined, as always, by my co-host, Renata.
Hello, everyone. It is Renata from Nourish with Renata, your intuitive nutrition coach, and I'm here to empower women to nourish their bodies, minds, and spirits.
And she is going to do just that today by answering this question, which I don't know if you follow Renata. If you don't, you should. You should be following both of us. But she has been talking so much about women and our menstrual cycles, and how do we not know more about it? It's our own bodies, and it's half the population. Anyways, I digress. I will ask the question and Renata will give you her take. So the question was, can I still exercise during my menstrual cycle? And are there any considerations I should be aware of during it? So I have a feeling you're gonna, get up on your soapbox a little bit. So take the floor.
Thank you. Well, and really first, I want to acknowledge the person that asked this question because it is such an important question to ask. And it really goes along with what you were saying. So many women don't understand their menstrual cycles, what it means, what you can or perhaps cannot do during each of the phases of your menstrual cycle. So I love that we're getting into this today. Now, the first thing that I want to touch upon is your menstrual cycle is actually not just when you're physically bleeding. So this is something that needs a little discernment because many people say, oh, my period started, and thinking that their period is just the bleed phase. Colloquially, that's what we call it. And really, truthfully, the menstrual cycle is the whole thing. It's not just when you're bleeding, it's also when you're not bleeding. So women tend to run off of a, generally speaking, monthly cycle, right? Men tend to run off of a 24-hour cycle. So that full month, whether it be anywhere between like 24 to 31 days, depending on the individual, that whole thing is your menstrual cycle. Now, within that, there are actually 4 phases. And so the first one is the menstruation phase, which is when you are actively bleeding. Now, I want to share this additional tidbit of information because I was talking to a woman yesterday and she didn't know this. So in the realm of sharing information so we really get empowered with our health, the first day of your menstruation phase when you're actively bleeding is actually not when you're spotting. It is when you have a full flow. So many times women, including myself, will spot before a full flow occurs. Now that's actually not day 1. When you get your full flow, that's day 1. So if you want to start tracking your cycle, tracking how long you're actively bleeding as well, knowing this information is really helpful. So what I think the person asking the question is referring to is specifically that bleed phase. And that bleed phase could be anywhere between 3 and 7 days, depending on the individual. So first things first, if we are talking about the menstruation phase, are there any things that we should consider when it comes to activity levels? And my answer is yes. So I'm a big proponent of listening to your body. And oftentimes, because hormones are quite low during the menstruation phase, your energy and your mood will generally be low as well. So if you're feeling really low energy, really low mood, it doesn't necessarily mean that you need to push yourself to do a heavy hit workout or lift really heavy weights or do anything that doesn't feel good for your body. The menstruation phase is actually a time where rest is important, where self-care is important. And knowing that for some people, self-care is going to be extra sleep or chocolate or baths or getting your hair done. And for others, self-care might be going to the gym or going for long walks or doing some stretches, whatever it means to you. So during the menstruation phase, listen to your body, listen to what would feel good for your body, and especially noting that many times women will have headaches or cramps or various other symptoms associated with the bleed phase. Really pay attention to those things. I found for myself, if I am active throughout the other 3 phases of my cycle, my cramps are actually significantly reduced. And there's lots of different reasons for that, which we won't get into. So just knowing that if I remain physically active throughout the other 3 weeks or phases, then during the menstruation phase, my cramps are significantly less. I feel more comfortable. And then if I will likely have a little bit more energy because I'm not suffering during that time. So I hope that made sense. And of course, keep the questions coming about the menstrual cycle. But Mac, what would you say about this?
Yeah, I think you hit it spot on. I think the main advice that we can give to all the women out there who are menstruating and have this issue or are curious about it is, like you said, to listen to your body. So Yes, it is perfectly normal and safe to exercise while you're in your bleed phase. I will say, like Renata was talking about, our hormones fluctuate all throughout our cycle. So there are different times that you may want to focus on different things. So for example, pre-ovulation, when our body is preparing to release an egg, it's getting strong, our hormones are nice and high. That might be a great time for, say, like strength work and, like a lot of lifting and things like that. Whereas after ovulation and our body's kind of in its cleanup, the bleed phase, all that is a better time, like she said, for maybe some rest. I would encourage some active rest, things like mobility and flexibility work, and maybe some gentle cardio. I will say, however, I typically, my hormone fluctuations, while I don't have like scientific measures, I don't typically notice extremes. And so I don't program my workouts. I don't program only easy workouts during my bleed phase. I program it like normal, and then I take it on a day-to-day basis for how I'm feeling. So I still do the workouts that I have planned typically, but it may only be like to a certain intensity versus if I wasn't in my bleed phase, I might try to push and go more all out. So the reason I don't prefer to put only easy workouts during my bleed phase is because what if I have a really great day and I'm feeling awesome and I just want to go crush a workout, like maybe a hard run or something like that. And I have that energy and I want that feel good, the endorphins and things like that. I don't want to say, oh, well, I'm on my bleed phase, so I guess I shouldn't. Like, don't let it become a limiting factor in your head when it's not physically. I'd rather take the physical cues of how we're feeling and go from there. So yes, again, perfectly normal, perfectly okay to exercise, move your body. That's what our bodies were meant to do during our bleed phase. And yeah, the considerations, you touched on them beautifully. And I will say too, that if you're listening to your body, you really can't go wrong. So despite what Renata and I are saying or how you're interpreting it, number one, listen to your body and go from there. And I think you really can't go wrong that way.
Yeah, I want to add one more thing to that. And I love that you talked about these essentially caveats because it is such a personalized experience, your bleed phase. In addition to that, I wanted to say, let's not forget about the mental and emotional benefits of moving your body. So it's not just, am I burning enough calories during this particular time when, sometimes many women will have increased appetite during the menstruation phase. It's also like, hey, is going for a run, is hitting the punching bag, is lifting really heavy, is that helping me to work out some of the emotions that I'm feeling? So if I'm in my ragey phase is also what I call it, or if I'm feeling particularly frustrated or like I'm feeling very anxious, sometimes movement is one of the best ways to manage those feelings and allow it to be released from your body. So also consider those things when it comes to how you want to move during your menstruation phase.
Such a good point to make. So yeah, if you need to get some of your rage out in your rage phase, go move, go hit something, a bag, not a person. But yeah, don't fear getting moving while you are on your period or in your bleed phase. So loved that question. And thank you for that answer and your input. As always, we will see you in the next episode.